Yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Unfucking Your CX. I am your host, Zack Hamilton, and I know you already know that. What you're really curious about is who's in the hot seat, what are they cringing about, and what are we going to learn? And I am really excited about today's guest. I was fortunate enough to panel with her at eTail West just a few months ago. So, Aurelia, welcome to the hot seat. I am so looking forward to our conversation.
Well, thank you for having me. Likewise. Let's get to
Yeah.
it.
Let's start this off. Let's set the scene because conversations like this a lot of times don't happen organically, right? It is typically outside the office when we have a little bit more psychological safety. So, are we having this maybe at your favorite pub, restaurant? We doing this at a concert, or maybe we're just going for a walk? Like, what gives you psychological safety to have a conversation like this?
So I'm French originally, so I mean, food is obviously a big part of who I am. So that definitely would be somewhere where there's wine and food. That's for sure.
Very
So we
nice.
would be sharing a meal and we would stop talking about everything, right?
I
Every
love that.
topic.
I love that. This is going to be a great topic. Well, you're not you're not a consultant. You are in the trenches every single day in customer experience. And what I've learned is you have this like unique customer base, especially at car parts. I'm really curious, what is that one topic that you're cringing about the most right now when it comes to CX?
Honestly, I thought a lot about this question, knowing that I was going to have this conversation with you. And I think the thing that makes me cringe the most is the lack of understanding of what is CX within organizations and outside of organizations. So, like even when we met at eTail, right, and it's a more marketing focused conference, and when I talk to people and they ask me what do you do, and I say I work in customer experience, I feel like they look at me like, okay, so what is it that you do? And I don't think anybody's asking that question when you say, I'm a marketer, I work in finance, I work in HR. But when it comes to CX, I go to dinner parties and I can see the blank stare of people like, okay. And then you say, okay, customer service, which is totally not the same thing. But people don't understand what CX is. And I think we failed as CX practitioners on how to position what customer
Mm.
experience is within our organizations and obviously outside of the organization.
You're so spot on there. I remember that when we were on the panel together, and you're right, it was very much a marketing focused conference. And we were talking some of the most basic CX principles. But I remember just looking out into the audience, and CMOs were just ferociously taking notes. Like, you couldn't, I mean, they almost needed an auto pen to help them keep up. But, like, to your point, I think as a discipline, we have an identity crisis of what
We
we are
do.
and who we are. But I also believe we've part of that is we've struggled to articulate the value that we bring to an organization.
We do. We absolutely do. And people think that CX is CSAT and NPS and that it's not a strategic or horizontally managed function. So yeah, it's been really hard when you look at job description on the market and you see that there's 20,000 different definition of what it is. I think there's an opportunity here, and it's people like you, Zach, that's going to help reshape what CX is and CX should look like.
Well, I think it's us, not just
I'll
you.
help too. Yeah,
Um,
sure.
'Cause I definitely think you and I have this vibe about the same thing. But you're totally right. I just wrote a post on this. What was it, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, where I went onto the market for every single vertical. And I basically took 60 job descriptions and I ran them through Chat GPT and basically said, okay, based on these 60 job descriptions, tell me, because they all had like customer experience in the title. And so I said, okay, what do all 60 of these have in common? How do they view customer experience? And to your point, there was two common threads. The first one was, it was really around customer service. So running the contact center, those things. And then the second one was around basically voice of customer.
And that's the thing is what I have to say. What's one of my pet peeves is talking about customer support, customer success, customer service, and putting everything, different sauces all the time, when those functions are very different and they all are part of the customer experience. So how do we explain this to people that are not in customer experience every day, so they understand that those are different roles with different skill sets, and you should hire differently for those roles?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you are just an incredible role model for this because I know how valued you are within your organization. You are very articulate around the value that your team creates. So it's not just about that NPS score, but you're always looking at the P&L impact, which I think is so important. So I guess before we get to the player tips, when you think about the mindset that you are at, have you always been at that mindset of CX as a value driver, or is it just like grown with you as you've kind of matured through the organization and now you are at a at a different level than what you started?
I mean, obviously there's an evolution, right? But I come from retail and I've been in front of a customer. I've been physically with a customer in front of me. And I think that when you have this experience and you are in the trenches and you take phone calls and you talk to customers, every day, then it shapes that understanding of what the whole customer experience is, because people are going to tell you, I went on your website and this doesn't work, and then when the product got delivered, this and that. And so you, by talking with them, you understand that it is the whole journey, and that's the principle of CX, right? It's the sum of all the interactions, and it's so true. Maybe the last interaction might have a bigger impression. We can discuss that. But I think when you understand it and we take it from the customer standpoint, it makes total sense. How do you orchestrate the customer experience so it makes sense from beginning to end from the customer standpoint? Because at the end of the day, you can have the best branding, you can have the best website. If nobody wants to play with you, then there's no point
Yeah,
in doing any of that.
100%. I've always said a CMO cannot outmarket shitty experiences. They just can't, right? Because that
And it's a
one,
different role, and we need
yeah,
them.
absolutely. Aurelia, when you think about kind of really clearing this up and helping our discipline create a true identity of who we are, what we do, and the value we bring, what's your first player tip?
I think that the first tip is for us to define or redefine what CX is, right? You ask 5 leaders today what they CX in their organization, I'm sure you have 5 different definitions, 100%. So how do we reposition CX in a true department position, in a true function, like marketing or HR or finance? Because we don't play that role today, even though we should sit at the intersection of enterprise strategy, commercial success, and enterprise transformation, because that's what we do. We shape the experience of the future. We help with trends and technology and brand and how customers want to interact with us. And it's for the customer, but it's also for the organization. I always say it has to be good for the customer and it has to be good for the brand. It cannot be one or the other. It has to be both.
That I love that. I think the only thing there that I would just kind of add on is I think my mindset shifted when I got, basically when I was asked to lead customer experience, my CEO said, look, I know you don't have experience leading a customer experience strategy, but in my eyes, customer experience is change management. And we're a 60-year-old business. And if I'm going to get our operations team, so our stores, to really buy into this transformation, they have to trust the person that is kind of like that relationship builder between our store support center and our stores, which is you. And so from there, it's like, okay, I am the seller of change. So I'm a change agent, and I'm the seller of transformation.
I think you said it. I think it's the constant evolution of what the company and the brand and the relationship is. Things are changing. You cannot say, oh, this recipe works, we're going to have the same for 100 years. So it's a never ending
Yeah.
asking yourself what you want to promise to your customer and how you deliver it.
Yeah. I love that player tip. What's the second one?
So the second one is really how do you hire a true CX leader? And you just said it for yourself, like you were not a CX leaders, but you became one. So I feel like today the CX leaders are seen by most organizations as glorified survey runners, like CSAT and NPS, and those are important. Don't get me wrong. We use them. They're just data points that you want to have. It's not the definition of what a CX leader is. So how do we how do we train the next generation of CX leaders? You and I were talking about that the other day is there's not really a lot of degrees on customer experience. You have plenty of degrees on marketing. Why not CX? Like there's a lack here, there's a gap here that we need to fill somehow. And why is that? So for me, the CX leader is really someone that sits at, that's that cross collaboration that is so crucial to make this work between the technology, the marketing, finance, even HR, right? That like you really touch every single department in your organization. So how do we become a true function with
Yeah.
leaders and training and degrees and recognition?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm with you 100%. I think right now we've leaned in. If you look at who's sitting in the roles of CX today, a lot of times it is insights professionals, right? And they
Right.
are, like Mary Drummond said on the podcast the other day, they're smart as hell. They're incredible with data. That doesn't really truly mean that they are P&L savvy. They don't understand that if I pull this one lever, this is going to happen, right? And for me, it's interesting. You just said your background, you come from retail. So I'm curious, Aurelia, where did you start in retail?
I worked for a luxury brand for 15 years. And so I had the chance, even though my background is technical, I'm a mechanical engineer. So I was not predestined to end up in customer experience. But long story short, I came here to the US with this brand. And in order to stay, I had to go from a manufacturing position to a retail position. So I ended up being dropped into a store. And I loved it. And I realized that my technical background was actually the best thing that could have happened to me to be good at this role because I understand what's happening behind the scenes so I can help make sure the front end can shine as well, right? So it's that collaboration between back end and front end. And I love that. And I think that we need to find leaders that are good at data, but also at street savvy, right? Having that experience on the phone, in the store, understanding what it takes, because it's so easy to have a spreadsheet or a PowerPoint saying, from now on, the experience is going to look like this. Now you take it and you do it, people in the store.
Yeah, I love that. I love when you said street smart on there because it is, and I know you're referencing like the stores because I grew up in store operations as well. To me, customer experience doesn't get driven from PowerPoints or Excel files. Like it truly gets delivered and driven from the street, from our stores. So I love that one. What's the third player tip?
This third player tip is really the one that we should start with to be able to get to the other two that we were talking about. It seems to me from what I sit is that a lot of CX leaders are talking about all the pain points that we want to remove, right? But we have to go beyond the pain removal and really bring value instead of just saying, hey, this is what I see, this is where it's not working, let's fix it. How do we deliver more value and instead of just adding patches for the experience to become effortless? And I think this is the mechanism that's going to show the value of CX to the other leaders is that not only you're not I have bad news again, I'm the one complaining about everything and it's annoying, right? And people want to do a good job. So if you come and say, hey, I see that we have a problem at delivery, we see that the way we're going to end up, removing this barrier is not pounding on people. If there's a problem with process and delivery, there's a reason for it. Maybe the process is too complex. Maybe the process is not good enough. Let's see how we can not only fix it, but add more value to it.
I love that. I think that's spot on. It's spot on around how do we show up and bring value to our organization. And, I have the privilege where I work with CX leaders every single day. And last week I got really frustrated because I felt like all week I've asked to see, I was asking this one question of, when was the last time that you've read your company's 10K or listened to their earnings call? And none of them have.
No, no way.
And it goes back to your point. If you don't understand how your company makes money, drives revenue, and creates EBITDA, you're not going to be able to serve the business from and tying it back to what you said earlier around the 2 points of value creation. You got to create value for your customers, but you have to create value for your company, your shareholders. You just have to. And so you can't do those two value streams if you don't understand how your organization makes money. Like, man, I wanted to pull my hair out.
I never understood why there's so many podcasts and articles written on CX is not a cost center. How do you show that you're delivering ROI? And I'm like, I never had this problem. I never had to fight
Right?
because I had to prove it was good for the company. And if you're having this problem, then you're fighting the wrong battles.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Aurelia, this has been a great conversation. I would love to continue it. So please come back to the
Me
hot
too.
seat again. If any of our listeners want to continue this conversation, where can they find you?
I'm on LinkedIn, so just hit me up and let's continue the talk about CX and how we become even more relevant in our organizations.
Amazing. Well, Aurelia,
Thank you,
thank
Zach.
you so much. We'll chat again soon. Cheers.
Bye.